Marcus Johnson stood in the elevator of the gleaming Stellar Dynamics Corporation headquarters, straightening his tie for the third time. His fingers brushed against the secure tablet containing his life's work, mathematical formulas and engineering, designs that could change humanity's future among the stars. The propulsion system he had developed could reduce travel time between planets by 70%. It was revolutionary, and today he would present it to people who could make it real. The elevator doors opened onto the 40th floor, revealing a reception area with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Houston skyline. A thin woman with blonde hair glanced up from behind a curved desk. "Dr. Johnson, the board is waiting for you in conference room A," she said, pointing down a long hallway. "Last door on the right." Marcus nodded and walked forward, each step measured and calm despite the excitement building in his chest. This meeting could change everything, not just for him, but for human space exploration. He paused outside the door, took a deep breath, and entered. 3 men in expensive suits sat at a long glass table. They didn't stand when he entered. The oldest man, with silver hair and cold blue eyes, glanced at his watch. "You're Johnson?" he asked, not looking directly at Marcus. "Yes, Dr. Marcus Johnson. Thank you for taking the time to review my proposal, Mr. Winters." Marcus stepped forward with his hand extended. Harold Winters barely touched his fingers before pulling back. "Let's get started. We have a tight schedule today." Marcus unpacked his tablet and connected it to the room's display system. The other 2 executives, Gregory Phillips, a thin man with a permanent frown, and Frank Donovan, younger with slicked back hair, whispered to each other as he prepared. "Gentlemen, I'm here to present what I believe is the most significant breakthrough in propulsion technology since the development of ion engines," Marcus began, bringing up the first slide of his presentation. Harold coughed. "Yes, we've read your rather ambitious claims, though I must say they seem quite far-fetched for someone with your background." Marcus paused, the comment hanging in the air. He continued, "The mathematics are sound. I've included complete proofs in the documentation I sent ahead." "Mathematics on paper is one thing," Frank interrupted, leaning back in his chair. "Actually building something that works is quite another." Marcus brought up a video on the screen. "This is a small-scale test of the drive system I conducted at my laboratory. As you can see, it achieves 97% of the predicted thrust with only 40% of the fuel consumption of current systems." Gregory squinted at the screen. "This could be anything. A clever video edit. We need more than home movies." Marcus felt his heart rate increase but kept his voice steady. The test was verified by Dr. Eliza Washington at Caltech and Dr. Peter Goldstein at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Their certification documents are included in my proposal. "Ah, yes, Washington," Harold said with a smirk toward his colleagues, always eager to support diversity in the sciences. The room fell silent. Marcus focused on his breathing, the way his father had taught him when facing people like this. "Don't let them see they've affected you. The science speaks for itself, Mr. Winters. This technology could reduce the journey to Mars from 7 months to just over 2. It would transform our ability to establish permanent bases beyond Earth. The commercial applications alone—" "Let me stop you there." Harold held up his hand. "Stellar Dynamics has been in the aerospace business for 40 years. We know what's possible and what isn't. These numbers you're throwing around, they simply don't add up to experienced eyes." Marcus opened the technical specifications. "If you look at the equations on page 12, you'll see how the system overcomes the traditional limitations of—" Frank laughed, not bothering to look at the screen. "Son, I've been designing engines since before you were born. If what you're claiming was possible, someone would have discovered it already. With respect, sir, that's not how innovation works," Marcus said, his voice firm but polite. "Every breakthrough seems impossible until it's done." Harold glanced at his watch again. "We appreciate your enthusiasm, Dr. Johnson. But Stellar Dynamics needs proven technologies, not theoretical experiments. Our investors expect results, not promises. This isn't theoretical. I've built working prototypes. If you'll just review the test data." "I think we've seen enough," Gregory cut in. We have other proposals to review today from more established figures in the field. The meeting had lasted less than 15 minutes. Marcus hadn't even shown half of his presentation. He slowly disconnected his tablet as the three executives stood up. "We'll keep your information on file," Harold said, already moving toward the door. "Janine will show you out." As Marcus packed his materials, he heard Frank whisper to Gregory by the door, thinking he couldn't hear. "Can you imagine putting the future of interstellar travel in his hands? Our investors would have a collective heart attack." Gregory chuckled. Winters was right to cut it short. What a waste of time. Marcus walked out with his head high, ignoring their stares. The receptionist avoided eye contact as he passed. Outside the building, Marcus loosened his tie and looked up at the clear blue sky. The rejection stung, but something else burned deeper. The knowledge that they hadn't even given his work a fair review. They had decided before he walked in the room. His phone buzzed. A message from his friend Olivia Martinez at Artemis Aerospace. "How did it go?" Marcus typed back. They didn't even look at the math. "Meeting over in 15 minutes. 3 dots appeared as she typed. Then, "Their loss, but maybe our gain. My boss wants to talk to you. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. This might be better anyway." Marcus looked back at the Stellar Dynamics Tower, sunlight reflecting off its windows. Sometimes doors closed so better ones could open. He had faced rejection before. It had never stopped him. "I'll be there," he replied. As Marcus walked to his car, he didn't know that in less than 24 hours the men who had just humiliated him would be desperately trying to reach him. By then, it would be too late. The future would belong to those who could see beyond their prejudice, and Marcus Johnson's name would be written among the stars. Marcus arrived at Artemis Aerospace headquarters 15 minutes early the next morning. Unlike the cold glass and steel of Stellar Dynamics, this building had warm wood panels in the lobby and large plants that made the space feel alive. A security guard checked his ID and pointed him toward the elevators. "Dr. Martinez is expecting you on the 12th floor," the guard said with a friendly smile. The elevator ride was quick. When the doors opened, Olivia Martinez was waiting for him. She was about his age, with dark hair pulled back in a neat bun and intelligent eyes behind simple glasses. She greeted him with a warm handshake. "Marcus, thank you for coming on such short notice," she said. "I've been following your work for years." Marcus looked surprised. "You have?" "Your papers on quantum field propulsion were brilliant," she said, as she led him down a hallway. "I tried to get our company to reach out to you 6 months ago, but there were other projects taking priority." They stopped outside a large meeting room. Through the glass walls, Marcus could see 5 people seated around a table, talking and reviewing documents on tablets. "That's our executive team," Olivia explained, "including Richard Blackwell, our CEO." She pointed to a tall man with salt and pepper hair. "Unlike Stellar's dinosaurs, Richard actually understands the science. He has a PhD in physics from Stanford." Marcus took a deep breath. "And they want to hear about my propulsion system?" "More than that," Olivia said with a smile. "Word travels fast in this industry, Marcus. When I heard how Stellar treated you yesterday, I showed Richard your proposal. He stayed up all night reviewing it. That's why we called you in so quickly." She pushed open the door, and the conversation inside stopped. Richard Blackwell stood up immediately and walked over with his hand extended. "Dr. Johnson, it's an honor to meet you," he said, his handshake firm and respectful. "Your work on quantum field manipulation is revolutionary." Marcus felt a wave of relief as Richard led him to the front of the room. This was already completely different from yesterday's meeting. "Everyone, this is Dr. Marcus Johnson," Richard said to the room. "He's developed what I believe could be the most important breakthrough in propulsion technology of the century. We're lucky he's here today." For the next hour, Marcus presented his research, equations, and test results. Unlike the Stellar executives, the Artemis team asked thoughtful questions. They engaged with the mathematics, challenged his assumptions in respectful ways, and showed genuine interest in understanding every aspect of his work. When Marcus showed the video of his prototype test, The room fell silent with awe. "You built this in your private lab?" asked an older woman who had been introduced as the head of engineering. "Yes," Marcus replied. "It's a 1/10 scale model, but it demonstrates the principles perfectly." Richard leaned forward. "And you've verified these results?" "2 independent labs confirmed my findings," Marcus said. "The physics is sound." Richard exchanged looks with his team. "Can you excuse us for 5 minutes, Dr. Johnson?" Marcus nodded and stepped out with Olivia. In the hallway, his heart was racing. This was going well, better than he had hoped. But years of disappointment had taught him to be cautious. "They're impressed," Olivia whispered. "I've never seen Richard this excited about a project." 5 minutes stretched to 15. Marcus began to worry. Then the door opened, and Richard invited them back in. "Dr. Johnson," Richard began, his face serious. "What happened at Stellar yesterday was their greatest mistake and potentially our greatest opportunity. Your propulsion system isn't just an improvement on existing technology. It's a complete paradigm shift." The head of engineering nodded. "With your drive, we could reach Mars in a third of the current time. The fuel savings alone would transform the economics of space travel." Richard placed a folder on the table and slid it toward Marcus. "We want to offer you a partnership, not just buying your technology, but bringing you on as a full partner in its development." Marcus opened the folder. Inside was a contract offering $150 million for development rights, with Marcus named as chief engineer on the project. He would retain partial ownership of the patents and receive royalties on all commercial applications. "This is..." Marcus was speechless. "It's what your work is worth," Richard said simply. "And there's more. We have a meeting this afternoon with Universal Space Holdings. They're looking to invest in next-generation propulsion technology." Universal? Marcus knew the name well. The company was the largest private investor in space technology in the world. They were supposed to partner with Stellar Dynamics. I saw the news reports. Olivia smiled. "They were. Until this morning when we sent them your proposal. They've asked to meet with us instead. Today." Richard nodded. "They're prepared to invest an additional $120 million to fast-track development, and they specifically requested that you be present at the meeting." Marcus sat back, trying to process what was happening. Yesterday, he had been dismissed and humiliated. Today, he was being offered everything he had worked for. "There's one more thing," Richard added. "Stellar Dynamics will be at that meeting too. Universal hadn't informed them yet that we're now in the running. They have no idea you'll be there." "Is that why you're rushing this contract?" Marcus asked, tapping the folder. Richard looked him straight in the eye. "Partly. We want you secured as our partner before that meeting, but mainly because your technology is that good, and we don't want to risk losing you." Marcus looked at the contract again, then at the faces around the table. These people had recognized his work's value immediately. They had treated him with respect from the moment he walked in. "I'll need to review the details with my lawyer," Marcus said, "but assuming everything is as it appears, I'd be proud to partner with Artemis." Richard smiled and extended his hand again. "Welcome aboard, Dr. Johnson. Now let's get ready to show Universal Space Holdings the future of interstellar travel." They began to prepare for the afternoon meeting. Marcus couldn't help feeling a sense of satisfaction knowing that Harold Winters, Gregory Phillips, and Frank Donovan were about to learn exactly what they had thrown away. The Universal Space Holdings building stood 70 stories tall in downtown Houston, its top shaped like a silver rocket pointing to the sky. Marcus, Richard, and Olivia arrived in an Artemis company car, their presentation materials ready on secure tablets. Marcus had spent the afternoon reviewing the contract with his lawyer via video call and had signed the partnership agreement just an hour earlier. "Nervous?" Olivia asked as they rode the elevator to the top floor. Marcus adjusted his tie. "A little, but not about the science." Richard checked his watch. "Stellar should already be up there. Alan Cooper, Universal's CEO, told me they scheduled their meeting for 3. Ours is at 3:30, but he suggested we arrive early." The elevator doors opened to reveal a large waiting area with glass walls looking out over the city. A receptionist greeted them and asked them to wait. Through a glass wall, Marcus could see into the main conference room where three familiar figures sat at a long table: Harold Winters, Gregory Phillips, and Frank Donovan from Stellar Dynamics. They were talking to a group of people Marcus didn't recognize, likely the Universal executives. Harold was speaking, his hands moving in big gestures. He looked confident. The others nodded and smiled. Stellar Dynamics clearly thought this meeting was a formality to close their expected deal. "They have no idea what's coming," Olivia whispered. A tall man in a perfectly tailored blue suit emerged from the conference room and approached them. He had a commanding presence that immediately identified him as someone in charge. "Richard, good to see you," he said, shaking Richard's hand. "This must be Dr. Johnson." "Yes, Alan Cooper. Meet Dr. Marcus Johnson," Richard said. Alan shook Marcus's hand firmly. "Your work is remarkable, Dr. Johnson. Our science team was up all night reviewing it." "Thank you, Mr. Cooper," Marcus replied. Alan glanced at his watch. "Let's shake things up a bit. Instead of waiting for the stellar meeting to end, I'd like you all to join us now. I'm curious to see their reaction." Marcus felt his heart rate increase. This was not what he had expected, but he nodded in agreement. Alan led them to the conference room and opened the door. The conversation inside stopped immediately. Harold Winters froze mid-sentence, his mouth hanging open when he saw Marcus. "Gentlemen," Alan said to the Stellar executives, "let me introduce some additional participants in our discussion today. This is Richard Blackwell, CEO of Artemis Aerospace, Dr. Olivia Martinez, their Chief Innovation Officer, and Dr. Marcus Johnson, who I believe you've already met." Frank Donovan's face turned red. Gregory Phillips looked down at the table. Harold tried to recover his composure. "What is the meaning of this, Alan?" Harold asked. "Our meeting was scheduled privately to discuss our partnership." Alan took his seat at the head of the table. "Nothing has been finalized, Harold, and when I received Dr. Johnson's propulsion system proposal from Artemis this morning, I felt it would be valuable to have both teams present their options. After all, $120 million is a significant investment." Harold's eyes widened at the mention of Marcus's propulsion system. "That technology is unproven. We already explained that to Dr. Johnson yesterday." Alan raised an eyebrow. "Did you?" "Our team of scientists seems to disagree. They found his mathematics quite sound." Marcus took a seat across from Harold. Richard and Olivia sat on either side of him. The tension in the room was thick. "Perhaps," Alan continued, "we should hear directly from Dr. Johnson about his propulsion system. Then Stellar can explain why they believe their more conventional approach is better." Harold looked like he wanted to object, but he had no choice. The Universal executives turned their attention to Marcus. For the next 20 minutes, Marcus presented his work clearly and confidently. He showed the test results, explained the physics, and answered technical questions from Universal's science team. The difference in reaction compared to his meeting at Stellar was like night and day. "When," he finished, Alan nodded appreciatively. "Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Now, Mr. Winters, would you care to explain why Stellar Dynamics dismissed this technology without proper review?" Harold shifted uncomfortably. "We didn't dismiss it without review. Our experts determined it wasn't viable." One of Universal's scientists, a woman with gray hair and sharp eyes, looked up from her tablet. "Which experts? I'd like to see their analysis. Because our entire team concluded this is the most promising propulsion breakthrough we've seen in decades." Harold glanced at his colleagues for support, but they looked equally lost. "Well," Harold stammered, "there were concerns about scalability and practical application." "Really?" Alan asked. "Because Dr. Johnson's small-scale prototype seems to function exactly as his mathematics predicted. Our team verified the test results this morning." Frank tried to change tactics. "We also had concerns about the significant investment required to develop untested technology." Richard Blackwell spoke up. "Artemis has already committed $150 million to develop Dr. Johnson's system. We believe that strongly in its potential." News hit the Stellar executives like a physical blow. Harold's face paled. 150 million, he whispered. Plus, Olivia added, Dr. Johnson is now our partner and will be leading the development team personally. Alan Cooper looked at the Stellar executives with disappointment. Gentlemen, I've known you for many years, so I have to ask directly, did you reject Dr. Johnson's proposal because of the science or because of something else? The uncomfortable silence that followed told everyone in the room the answer. Alan stood up. I think we've seen enough. Universal. Space Holdings values innovation and judges ideas on merit alone. Dr. Johnson's propulsion system represents exactly the kind of breakthrough we want to invest in. He turned to Richard and Marcus. Artemis Aerospace, we would like to partner with you on developing the Johnson propulsion system. We're prepared to invest not just the $120 million originally planned, but an additional $80 million to accelerate development. Richard stood and shook Alan's hand. We would be honored to have Universal as our partner. As the details were being discussed, Marcus glanced at the Stellar executives. They sat in stunned silence, watching the biggest deal of their year, perhaps their careers, disappear before their eyes. Harold finally spoke, his voice weak. Alan, you can't be serious. We've been planning this partnership for months. Alan looked at him coldly. I'm always serious about $200 million investments, Harold. And I expect the people I do business with to evaluate opportunities based on facts and science, not personal biases. As Marcus left the room with his new partners, he didn't look back at the men who had humiliated him just one day earlier. He didn't need to. Their $120 million deal had not just fallen apart, it had transformed into something much bigger that would change the future of space travel forever. News of the deal between Artemis Aerospace, Marcus Johnson, and Universal Space Holdings spread quickly. By the next morning, it was the top story on every business and science news channel. The headlines all told the same story. A revolutionary propulsion system that would transform space travel had secured $350 million in development funding. Marcus woke up to his phone buzzing non-stop with messages from old colleagues, friends, and even reporters seeking interviews. His life had changed overnight. As he made coffee in his small apartment kitchen, he turned on the television to see his own face on the screen. The reporter was explaining how his propulsion system could reduce travel time to Mars by 2/3. His phone rang. It was Olivia. Have you seen the stock market this morning? She asked without saying hello. Marcus hadn't. No, what's happening? Artemis shares are up 22%. Stellar Dynamics is down 18% and still falling. Their investors are panicking. Marcus sat down, trying to process this information. I never wanted to hurt their company. You didn't, Olivia said firmly. Their leadership did this to themselves. And it gets worse for them. Someone leaked security footage from your meeting at Stellar. What? Marcus was confused. What security footage? Apparently all their meeting rooms record video for security purposes. Someone inside Stellar leaked the video of your meeting with Harold, Gregory, and Frank to the media. It shows exactly how they treated you and the comments they made. Marcus turned up the volume on his TV. They were playing a clip from the leaked video now. It showed Harold Winters speaking over him, dismissing his calculations without looking at them. Then it cut to Frank Donovan, making his comment about investors having a collective heart attack if they put their trust in Marcus. This is becoming more than just a business story, Olivia continued. Social media is on fire. People are calling for boycotts of Stellar's products and services. Marcus wasn't sure how to feel. He had wanted his technology to be recognized, not to become the center of a public controversy. What happens to Harold and the others, he asked. Stellar's board of directors has called an emergency meeting for this afternoon. Rumor is they're being placed on administrative leave while the company investigates. After hanging up, Marcus tried to focus on work. He had a meeting scheduled at Artemis later to begin assembling his development team, but it was hard to concentrate with his phone continually ringing and news alerts popping up. At Stellar Dynamics headquarters, chaos reigned. Harold Winters sat in his office, blinds drawn, watching the company he had helped build for 20 years crumble around him. His assistant had already collected 3 messages from board members demanding explanations. The company's largest shareholders were threatening to sell their positions if immediate action wasn't taken. A knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. It was Patricia Reynolds, head of human resources, and Nathan Clark from legal. The board meeting has been moved up to 1 o'clock, Patricia said, her voice cold. And they've asked that you, Gregory, and Frank not attend in person. You'll join by video call. Harold knew what that meant. They've already decided, haven't they? Nathan nodded. The video leak is devastating, Harold. Not just for public relations, but legally. We've already received formal complaints of discrimination and hostile work environment. It was a 10-minute meeting, Harold protested. We make thousands of business decisions every year. Not every technology pans out. Patricia looked at him with disappointment. I've reviewed the video myself, Harold. This wasn't about technology. The 3 of you dismissed Dr. Johnson because of who he is, not what his ideas were worth. That's not true, Harold insisted, but his voice lacked conviction. The board has also requested access to all emails between you, Gregory, and Frank. Regarding Dr. Johnson's proposal, Nathan added, I suggest you cooperate fully. After they left, Harold searched his email for messages about Marcus. What he found made his stomach sink. There were jokes, dismissive comments, and clear evidence. They had decided to reject the proposal before even seeing the presentation. In one particularly damaging exchange, Frank had written, Even if this somehow works, can you imagine putting him in front of our investors? Not the right face for our brand. At 1 p.m., Harold, Gregory, and Frank joined the board meeting by video. The chairwoman, Eleanor Brooks, wasted no time. Effective immediately, all 3 of you are placed on administrative leave pending a full investigation. Your company access cards, emails, and system passwords will be deactivated today. If the investigation confirms what the video strongly suggests, your employment with Stellar Dynamics will be terminated. Gregory tried to object, but Eleanor continued. Beyond the enormous financial damage you've caused this company, your actions violated our core values and possibly the law. The board's priority now is to limit the damage to our reputation and shareholder value. Meanwhile, at Artemis Aerospace, Marcus met with Richard, Olivia, and a team of engineers to begin planning the development of what was now being called the Johnson Drive. The atmosphere was electric with excitement. We've already received applications from over 30 top engineers wanting to join your team, Richard told Marcus, including 5 from Stellar Dynamics, who say they want to work for someone who values science over bias. As they planned the next steps, Alan Cooper from Universal Space Holdings joined the meeting. The scientific community is buzzing about your work, Dr. Johnson, Alan said. NASA has reached out to us directly about potential applications for their next generation of exploration vehicles. By the end of the day, Marcus had selected his core team and outlined the development timeline. The first full-scale prototype would be ready for testing in 6 months, and if all went well, the first spacecraft equipped with the Johnson Drive would launch within 2 years. As Marcus left the Artemis building that evening, a reporter and cameraman were waiting outside. Dr. Johnson, do you have any comment on the situation at Stellar Dynamics? How does it feel to see the executives who rejected your technology now facing termination? Marcus paused, considering his answer carefully. He could use this moment for revenge, to publicly humiliate the men who had dismissed him. But that wasn't who he was. I'm focused on the future, he said simply. The Johnson Drive represents a new era in space exploration that will benefit everyone. That's what matters. The reporter pressed for more. But the video clearly shows racial bias. Aren't you angry? Marcus looked directly into the camera. The best response to prejudice isn't anger, it's excellence. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a propulsion system to build. As he walked to his car, Marcus's phone buzzed with a new message. It was from Alan Cooper. Just heard from NASA. They want to meet next week. This is just the beginning. Marcus smiled. The men who had humiliated him were facing the consequences of their actions, but more importantly, his technology would change humanity's future among the stars. That was the true victory. 1 year later, Marcus stood in the massive control center at Cape Canaveral. Screens lined the walls, showing various views of the launch pad where the spacecraft's second chance waited. It was the first vessel equipped with the Johnson Martinez drive, named in honor of both Marcus and Olivia, who had become not just colleagues but close friends during the intense development process. The room buzzed with activity as engineers and technicians prepared for the historic launch. Richard Blackwell stood nearby, talking with Alan Cooper. Both men had become strong supporters and mentors to Marcus over the past year. NASA officials moved through the room, checking final details before the countdown began. 5 minutes to launch, announced the flight director. Marcus felt a mix of excitement and nerves. The past year had been the most challenging and rewarding of his life. His team had worked countless hours to bring his theoretical design into reality. There had been setbacks and breakthroughs, moments of doubt and moments of triumph. But now, the day had finally arrived. The Johnson Martinez drive had been tested extensively on Earth, but this would be its first journey to space. The mission was ambitious. Second Chance would travel to Europa, Jupiter's moon, to establish a research base. With conventional engines, such a journey would take years. With Marcus's drive, it would take just 7 months. "How are you feeling?" Olivia asked, joining him at the main viewing window. "Like I'm dreaming," Marcus replied, honestly. "From rejection to this in just 1 year," Olivia smiled. "You earned it, and the world is better for it." On the screens around them, millions of people worldwide were watching the live stream of the launch. The Johnson Martinez drive had captured the public's imagination in a way no space technology had since the Apollo program. It represented not just a breakthrough in propulsion, but a new hope for humanity's future among the stars. 1 minute to launch, came the announcement. Marcus thought briefly about Harold Winters, Gregory Phillips, and Frank Donovan. After being fired from Stellar Dynamics, they had become cautionary tales in the aerospace industry. No other company would hire them. Stellar itself had never recovered from the scandal and the loss of the Universal contract. 6 months ago, what remained of the company had been acquired by a competitor for a fraction of its former value. 30 seconds. But Marcus didn't waste much time thinking about the past. The future was too important, too full of possibility. His drive would not just take humans to Europa, but eventually to the outer reaches of the solar system, and perhaps, someday, to the stars. 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7. The room fell silent as everyone watched the countdown. 3, 2, 1, ignition. On the screen, the engines of Second Chance flared to life. The distinctive blue glow of the Johnson Martinez drive illuminated the launch pad as the spacecraft began to rise, slowly at first, then with increasing speed. Within moments, it was racing toward the sky, leaving a trail of blue light behind. The control room erupted in cheers as the spacecraft successfully entered orbit. The first stage of the mission was complete. In a few hours, once all systems were confirmed operational, the Johnson Martinez drive would activate at full power for the first time in space, propelling Second Chance toward Jupiter at speeds never before achieved by a human-made object. As the celebration continued around him, Marcus was asked to say a few words to the global audience. He stepped to the microphone, looking at the camera that would carry his image to people watching around the world. "Today marks not just a technological breakthrough," he said, "but a reminder that progress comes when we judge ideas on their merit, not the superficial characteristics of those who propose them. The journey to Europa is just the beginning. With the Johnson Martinez drive, the entire solar system has become our neighborhood, and the stars themselves are now within our reach." After the successful launch, Marcus's life changed in ways he could never have imagined. He became one of the most celebrated figures in science, mentioned alongside Einstein and Newton as someone who had fundamentally changed humanity's understanding of what was possible. But fame and success didn't change who Marcus was at heart. He used his influence to establish scholarships for young people from disadvantaged backgrounds interested in science and engineering. He made sure that the doors that had almost been closed to him would be open for the next generation of innovators. 6 months after the launch, Marcus watched from the control room again as Second Chance approached Europa right on schedule. The spacecraft's sensors sent back the first detailed images of the moon's surface as it prepared to deploy the research base. Olivia stood beside him, now his partner in both work and life. Their shared passion for space exploration had grown into something deeper over the months of working closely together. "What's next for us?" she asked, looking at the images of Europa's icy surface streaming in. Marcus smiled. "I've been working on some calculations for an improved version of the drive. I think we can reduce the travel time even further." Richard Blackwell overheard and laughed. "Already planning the next breakthrough? Can we at least celebrate this? One first? The next one is always more exciting," Marcus replied. "That's how progress works." As the first human-made structure was successfully deployed on Europa's surface, Marcus thought about how different things might have been if Harold Winters had looked past his prejudice and seen the potential in the propulsion system. Stellar dynamics might have been part of this historic moment instead of a footnote in a business school case study on how bias leads to failure. But perhaps it had worked out exactly as it should. The Johnson-Martinez drive had found its home with people who valued ideas based on merit, who saw potential where others saw only their own narrow views. And now, humanity had a new future among the stars. As celebrations continued around him, Marcus turned his attention to his new calculations. Europa was just the beginning. With the next version of the drive, they could go even further, perhaps to the moons of Saturn or beyond. The solar system was opening up, and Marcus Johnson was leading the way.